normally talk to people on the show about, and that's his personal journey, part of it, and possibly your personal journey too. Linwood, can you give yourself an introduction so I don't have to?
Most definitely. My journey begins with just trying to understand the definition of love and the definition of self-love and how to organize yourself around that kind of love that you have for yourself and giving it outwards, which is a bit of a learning experience. Something I kind of went through. Well, I had to go through a couple life experiences that took me in the hospital. It's where I had to recover myself, yeah. And that's when I went through different philosophies to learn what was more suitable. None of them really meshed because I guess the way that I process things, I just couldn't latch on to a simple idea to put faith in something that I didn't have full knowledge on. So I ended up just studying the Bible just to see what was in there. And the words were actually applicable. And when I applied them, my physical diet plus my mental regained health. And that was my first book from that experience, Perfecting and Reforming Personal Religion. And that's how I got here.
So you say your journey, you were obviously sick. Now your journey, your first book, Perfecting and I'm sorry,
Reforming.
Reforming. I was going to say performing. Holy cow. Anyway, but reforming personal religion. There's something very important in that most people don't get probably, and that it's personal, not the world, but personal. What we're talking about today is really your spirit, your faith, and your own personal self, right? So can you tell me about the journey that you actually had to get where you are today?
It was exactly just as you were saying, the divide. When we hear the word religion, we're traditionally made to believe that it's kind of an organized occultist type deal where you have to go through different sorts of treatments in order to be accepted by whoever you would want to be accepted by. And that's not what the Bible teaches. And I found that out by living out the words that were in it. And I went through, back in 2012, graduated college. The burn from that, because I graduated and I didn't have an impression. I just did it to do it. And so I graduated college and I was upset with myself about that because I listened to opinions that this is what you need to do and to have the kind of life that you need. And when I did do it, it didn't manifest as I was told. And not that that's anything wrong with that, but, ignorant believing lies, I guess, without thinking. And so I kind of wanted to just, how do I handle that? And I thought I needed to find something that was relatable to me. And I loved exercising and I loved the gym and I wanted to own that. Thing is, I overdid it with the different supplements and all of that, which hurt me. And at that point, I needed to just realize, why did I take the time to do all of that instead of looking at myself? Like, why would I go through that route instead of taking the time to sit and to think and to reflect? And then that's where I decided to just search through different kinds of philosophies, not specifically religions, but just the ideas in them. And the philosophies in the religions didn't make sense because they weren't that practical. They didn't infuse knowledge in a way that would cause me to react against myself instead of reacting for something I don't know for sure is there. And that's where I went into the Bible and learned the different philosophies that were there, and I applied them. They were so beneficial. I wrote about them, and I've been writing about them and publishing books about them ever since then. And not just the philosophy in the Bible, as you pointed out, the difference between world and personal. That's also included in my writings because that's a really great misconception that, the Bible has been turned into a public religion when it's really more of a private sort of camp where then you can just learn who you are to take the information you've retained from applying those words and be you in the world.
I like how you're putting it because a lot of organized religion puts an agenda on religion, and this allows what you're talking about allows you to have your actual own beliefs while following relatively the same thing, but have your own personal opinions, and it's not set in stone. It's what your heart follows and what your soul follows. Does that make sense?
It does. And at the same time, it's proven. It's proven by you at the same time. So that's the goal. The goal is for you to live in the lens that you are, not to live in the lens that is set up for you, because that's where rebellion comes from. So all of a sudden, there's a whole lot of people that really don't believe that God exists. But the thing is that it's not so much that God doesn't exist, because that's also a belief. So to believe that you don't believe is also a belief, which also is a connotation to religion. So, and that also comes from a different God of non-belief.
Yep.
And so at the same time, when you're saying something doesn't exist, you're saying it actually does exist. And that sort of route can be healed simply by looking at the words. And so you've got a whole bunch of people that are being turned away from mental examination because of the ideology that's behind religion, which kills something that we're missing out, which is something absolutely beautiful, which is the discovery of us through a specific wisdom that when you apply yourself to it, you learn a whole lot more about you, and you learn a whole lot more about the definition of what you would apply to the term God is.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm trying to wrap my head around some things. That's why I paused. So, so when you talk about specific, I apologize. I lost the word, but can you give me an example of a specific lesson that you've read through the Bible that was applicable to you? Do you have anything like that you can actually...
One specific lesson is how the Bible teaches you how to study the Bible. So when you go through the specific theological seminaries, there's a historical critical method that's taught when studying the Bible. And it's a method of hermeneutics where you study the Bible as if it's a history book. And so you're not actually studying the words as if the words are relevant. You're studying the words according to whatever that critical historical method would be. Which kind of makes the words not relevant in the same sense as you would study a history book.
Yeah.
That's a little confusing. I don't know if I worded that right.
No, it makes sense. I think the best way to word it would be the Bible might be a living document versus a history book, if that makes sense, right?
Yep.
Something like that. I'm sorry for pulling things out of your head and saying that, but yeah.
And so in the Bible, it teaches you to study every single word by word, and line on line, comparing words with words and lines with lines. And in that sense, what you're actually doing is you're allowing your mind to fall into a state of flow. And in that state of flow, analogical reasoning takes over. So now you're shifting thoughts, ideas, and perceptions. You're converting them into more thoughts, ideas, and perceptions, and you're getting a more concrete definition of what's being said. So the personal work of examination through going through the words line by line in a detailed manner, that's the correct way of living, or of mentally living the words of the Bible out.
Okay.
And that process, you can take that process and you can apply it practically into our lives, where there are things in our lives that we need to get out. They can't be there anymore. Specific habits, routines, people, ideas, and to take the time to sit down and think about who we want to be in the association of what we have physically around us. When you take that method of studying from the Bible and apply it to our life, one of the lessons I learned is that when you critically analyze who you are, then you're able to creatively become more innovative in a way that's industrial for you and for your environment around you. So you're just not benefiting you by analyzing who you are. You are coming out of that process in a way to be released your essence outward. And so that's one of the lessons that I've learned from just how the Bible teaches you how to study and how you can apply it to the condition of you being human.
Okay. So as we look at the Bible, I want to talk about history a little bit,
Yeah.
and the lessons that you can learn from the Bible. I'm going to take the skeptic's role here, if that's
Okay.
okay for a minute.
Okay.
Now, you look at the Bible; it's a 2,000-year-old book that has stories from all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And we take the Old Testament specifically; it's got some horrific things in there.
It does.
How do you take what's in the Old Testament, the horrific things specifically, and reiterate them back into lessons for today about how we treat each other?
You do so by looking at the specific wisdom that was used back then. The Bible is broken down into two specific themes of learning. The first theme is the theme of Moses. And, Moses, the religion that he gave at the time was specifically an Egyptian religion where it was ruled by laws, mandates, commandments, ordinances. So there's a little bit of paganism in that religion. And the God of that time is clearly a pagan God that was there. But at the same time, Moses was a very pure individual in his doctrine. So although he was raised in the Egyptian religion, he was very intelligent towards the original religion that was before those Egyptian folks. So he hid the actual point through a pagan religion. And so when the time of Moses passed and what they call Jesus, the man they call Jesus, he came along and preached the real doctrine that Moses foreshadowed he would preach. And
Okay.
the doctrine that he preached was not the same doctrine as Moses. So whereas Moses said to abide by specific laws, rules, commandments, do this, you please God, go here and you do this, kill these people and you will please him, he will give you this if you do this. The new doctrine clarified what Moses kind of hid, to where the new doctrine now became you need mental and spiritual health. And in order to get that mental and spiritual health, you have to abandon what Moses taught. You have to throw out those kind of mental constraining rules on your conscience, and you have to go through piece by piece, learning what actually Moses hid. And in doing that, you will have a better certified perception of how to honor the God that Moses hid. And this is why the man was crucified. And so I guess to answer the how do I reconcile the two, you reconcile the two by going through that journey, taking that mental journey to actually understand this is false, why it's false, and how the mind should be better and how it can advance from that old way of thinking.
You know, it's. I'm glad that you went into such detail. I grew up in the Pentecostal church, and I'm. I will say this: I believe that there's something out there, but I'm not quite sure what it is. I don't pretend to know. For those that have faith, I'm extremely happy for them because technically I have faith too. I believe there's something. I just don't know what it is. The one thing that I always got that people take that Old Testament dogma very seriously, and they bring it forward to today. When there's a specific passage in the Bible, and I'm not going to quote it correctly, but basically it's Jesus says, what has come before is not true. I'm the word and I'm the law, and go forth from here with my teachings, right? That's not exact, of course, obviously. In today's day and age, we can look at the Bible as mythology. We can look at it as however we choose to. But I think the important part is to bring forward the lessons that we can and live with those lessons and have a good life. Before we close up, I'm sorry I took a minute and a half of your time. Where can people find you online, Linwood, to purchase your books and stuff like that?
You can find me on my website, linwoodjacksonjr.com. You can also go into Amazon and just type Linwood Jackson Jr. into the Amazon search, and I will definitely be there.
Okay. Linwood, I want to thank you for reaching out to talk to me. We've had a viewer the whole time, and usually they pop in and out, but we've had somebody watching the whole time, so your message has been pretty effective.
Oh, that's awesome.
Did I ask you at the start what you would be? I was in the thing on a high note. So if you could be any animal, what animal would you be?
Oh, no thought, lion.
Lion? Okay, fair enough. And why?
Because they're just chill. Where you see them just sitting there, it's just like nobody wants to mess with them, and they won't mess with anyone unless someone interrupts their pride or their, or their relaxation. But if anyone gets too close to them or their pride, they'll look up, and if they make that eye contact, it's over.
It's done. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I do want to thank you for coming on. The last question I have for you is, other than this interview, what's one thing you've done today to make yourself happy?
One thing I've done today to make myself happy, I would say breakfast. I had a really good breakfast today.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, you would consider it dinner. It's a little bit of a mix there: spaghetti and then cereal after.
You might be surprised, but I got 3 kids. I consider any food a blessing.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, LinwoodJacksonJr.com, correct?
Yes.
That's where you can find Linwood. He seems like a wonderful fellow. He's calm and chill. Please look him up, follow him. All of my followers, if you want to find faith, Linwood could help you do that. And not religious faith, but personal faith, which is an important thing. Linwood, we close the show in one way, and that's I need you to do this and keep doing it. Bye, everybody.